Jabez stands out as a figure of hope and faith in the genealogical records of Judah, found in 1 Chronicles 4 to 9 to 10. Among a long list of names, his inclusion comes with a brief but profound story, setting him apart as a man of exceptional devotion and determination. The genealogies in 1 Chronicles serve as a historical record, tracing the lineage of Israel's tribes. These lists often focus on prominent families and leaders, but Jabez's mention interrupts the pattern. His story does not focus on his family or military exploits, but instead highlights his faith and prayer life. This unique emphasis suggests that his life carried lessons of spiritual significance for future generations. Jabez's name, meaning sorrow or pain, reflects a somber start to his life. His mother chose his name because of the severe anguish she experienced during his birth. The specifics of her pain are not detailed. It could have been physical, emotional, or circumstantial, but the name encapsulates the hardships surrounding his early existence. In ancient Hebrew culture, names often symbolized a person's destiny or the circumstances of their birth. For Jabez, such a name could have been a burden, a constant reminder of suffering. However, his story is one of transformation. Jabez rises above the limitations of his name, redefining his identity through a deep relationship with God. The story of Jabez, briefly mentioned in 1 Chronicles 4, carries profound lessons about character, faith, and transformation. Described as more honorable than his brothers, Jabez stands out in the biblical genealogies as a man who rose above his circumstances to live a life marked by integrity and hope. Be described as more honorable suggests that Jabez lived a life of exceptional moral uprightness. While little is said about his brothers, the comparison highlights his unique character. He likely demonstrated faithfulness to God, compassion toward others, and unwavering commitment to righteousness. This distinction implies that Jabez's honor wasn't tied to wealth, status, or outward accomplishments, but to his inner qualities. His life serves as an example of how living with integrity and faithfulness can set a person apart, even in a world that may seem indifferent to such values. Jabez's name, meaning sorrow or pain, reflected a difficult beginning. His mother named him so because of the pain she experienced during his birth. In a culture where names often shaped identities and expectations, this could have cast a shadow over his life. However, Jabez refused to be defined by the sorrow attached to his name. Instead, he placed his trust in God, choosing faith and hope over despair. His bold and heartfelt prayer reflects this choice. "Oh, that you would bless me indeed, and enlarge my territory, that your hand would be with me, and that you would keep me from evil, that I may not cause pain." Jabez's prayer reveals his desire not only for blessings and growth, but also for God's guidance and protection. He sought a life that would bring joy and avoid perpetuating the sorrow associated with his name. The Bible records that God granted Jabez's request. This simple yet profound statement underscores the power of faith and the importance of living with integrity. Jabez's prayer was not just a request for personal gain, but a reflection of his honorable character and dependence on God. Honor comes from integrity. Jabez's distinction as more honorable than his brothers reminds us that true honor stems from living a life of faith, righteousness, and commitment to God's principles. Faith over circumstance. Despite a name that symbolized pain, Jabez chose to trust in God and seek a future filled with hope and blessing. The power of prayer. Jabez's prayer reflects his faith and humility. It shows the importance of bringing our deepest desires to God and trusting in His power to transform our lives. Redemption beyond labels. Jabez's story is a testament to God's ability to rewrite our stories, turning sorrow into joy and despair into purpose. Though brief, Jabez's story leaves an enduring legacy. He is remembered not for his challenges, but for his faithfulness and the blessings that followed. Jabez's life teaches us that with integrity, faith, and trust in God, we can overcome any label or circumstance and live lives that inspire others and bring glory to God. Jabez's story, though rooted in sorrow, shines as a beacon of hope, showing that honor and faith can transform even the most challenging beginnings into a life of significance and blessing. Jabez's prayer, recorded in 1 Chronicles 4:10, is a profound example of faith and trust in God. Despite his challenging beginnings, Jabez boldly approaches God with humility and confidence, seeking divine intervention to reshape his life. This prayer, though brief, is filled with depth, encapsulating a heartfelt desire for blessings, protection, and a life that glorifies God. Jabez begins with a passionate plea for God's blessings. The word indeed underscores the intensity of his request. He seeks not just ordinary blessings, but abundant, overflowing favor. Trusting God's provision, Jabez recognizes that all good things come from God, demonstrating his dependence on divine generosity, spiritual and material prosperity. His request reflects a desire for both spiritual enrichment and the resources necessary to fulfill his God-given purpose. Jabez's boldness in asking for blessings teaches us to approach God with faith, knowing that he delights in giving good gifts to his children. This element of the prayer reflects Jabez's desire for growth and expanded opportunities. While it may refer to literal land or influence, it also carries profound spiritual symbolism. A desire for growth, Jabez seeks to extend his reach, whether in his responsibilities, relationships, or ability to serve others. Spiritual expansion. His request symbolizes the longing to grow in faith, purpose, and impact for God's glory. This part of the prayer challenges believers to dream big, asking God to widen the scope of their influence and calling, while trusting him to provide the strength and resources needed. Jabez acknowledges his reliance on God for guidance, strength, and protection. Dependence on God's presence. By asking for God's hand to be with him, Jabez demonstrates a deep awareness that success and blessings are only possible through God's active involvement. A request for guidance and strength. He seeks God's presence in every aspect of his life, from his daily decisions to his long-term journey of faith. This part of the prayer emphasizes the importance of staying connected to God, relying on him as the ultimate source of wisdom and power. The final element of Jabez's prayer is a plea for deliverance from harm and sin, reflecting both humility and self-awareness. Deliverance from evil. Jabez asks God to protect him from external dangers and internal temptations, recognizing the destructive power of sin. Transformation of his name. His request is deeply personal. He does not want to live up to the sorrowful meaning of his name. Instead, he seeks to bring peace and blessing to others. The prayer is a reminder that God is our shield, capable of guarding us from the pain of evil and enabling us to lead lives that bring joy rather than harm. Jabez's prayer is more than a personal plea. It is a model of faith and dependence on God. His boldness in seeking blessings, his desire for growth, his reliance on God's presence, and his plea for deliverance resonate with believers today. By granting Jabez's request, God demonstrated his faithfulness and generosity. Jabez's story serves as a timeless encouragement for us to pray boldly, trusting in God's power to transform our lives and lead us into a future filled with His abundant grace. The account of Jabez's prayer concludes with a simple and powerful statement. So God granted him what he requested, 1 Chronicles 4:10. This brief conclusion speaks volumes about God's character, His responsiveness to faith-filled prayers, and the alignment of Jabez's desires with God's will. The Bible makes no mention of hesitation or conditions in God's response. Instead, the statement implies an immediate and affirmative answer to Jabez's plea. This highlights several truths about God. God's willingness to bless. God delights in responding to those who earnestly seek Him. Jabez's request was not viewed as presumptuous, but as a demonstration of trust in God's goodness. God's faithfulness. By granting Jabez's prayer, God affirmed His covenant promise to bless those who call upon Him with sincere hearts. Jabez's prayer resonated with God because it reflected a heart aligned with divine purposes. His requests were not selfish or self-serving. They were rooted in a desire to live a life of faith and impact. A heart for growth and service. Jabez sought blessings not merely for personal gain, but to expand his opportunities to serve and glorify God. Dependence on God. Each element of the prayer demonstrated humility and reliance on God, which aligns with the principles of faithful living outlined in Scripture. This alignment underscores the biblical truth that when our desires are in harmony with God's will, He is eager to respond. As 1 John 5:14 states, if we ask anything according to His will, He hears us. Jabez's story highlights the transformative power of a prayer offered in faith. His earnest appeal was grounded in trust, humility, and the deep belief in God's ability to change his circumstances. Faith in action. Jabez did not resign himself to the limitations of his name or circumstances. Instead, he believed that God could rewrite his story, and he acted on that belief through prayer. God's abundant response. The brevity of the narrative leaves no doubt about the effectiveness of Jabez's prayer. God's granting of his request is a testament to the power of faith and the willingness of God to bless His children. Jabez's story is a profound encouragement for believers today. It reminds us that God hears us. No matter how brief or specific our prayers, God listens when we approach Him with sincerity and faith. God is willing to bless. Like Jabez, we can confidently seek God's blessings, guidance, and protection, knowing that He delights in responding to His children. Faith can transform our story. Jabez's life began with sorrow, but ended in blessing, demonstrating that faith in God can rewrite even the most difficult narratives. The response of God to Jabez's prayer is a beautiful example of His grace and generosity, inspiring believers to seek Him boldly and trust Him completely. The story of Jabez is rich with themes that resonate with faith, hope, and the transformative power of prayer. Though brief, his narrative carries profound lessons about trusting in God, seeking His blessings, and embracing His ability to change lives. Jabez's prayer reflects unwavering trust in God as the ultimate provider of all blessings. He believed that every good gift comes from God and sought Him as the source of abundance. A heart of reliance. Jabez's approach to God demonstrates dependence, acknowledging that his strength and success could only come from divine provision. Faith beyond circumstances. Despite a difficult start to life, Jabez trusted that God could change his story and bring about blessings beyond what seemed possible. This topic reminds us to place our faith in God, recognizing Him as the provider who meets both our spiritual and material needs. Jabez's prayer is striking for its ambition and humility. He did not shy away from asking for great things. yet his heart was aligned with God's will. A humble boldness, while his requests were large blessings, expanded territory, God's presence, and protection. Jabez approached with humility, recognizing his dependence on God. Trusting God's ability, Jabez's prayer reflects a deep understanding of God's power and willingness to provide abundantly for those who seek him. This topic encourages believers to pray boldly, with faith that God is both able and willing to answer prayers according to his purposes. The story highlights God's attentiveness to the prayers of his people and his readiness to extend grace and favor to those who call upon him earnestly. A responsive God. God's immediate granting of Jabez's request illustrates his openness to bless and his delight in faithful, heartfelt prayers. Unmerited favor. Jabez's story reminds us that God's blessings are acts of grace, not dependent on human merit, but on his loving character. This theme reassures us that God's favor is available to those who approach him in faith, seeking his blessings with sincere hearts. Jabez's life began under the shadow of sorrow, as his name, meaning pain, reflected the hardship of his birth. Yet his story is one of transformation, showing that God can redefine our identity and circumstances. Rising above limitations, Jabez did not allow his name or the pain it symbolized to dictate his future. Through prayer, he sought God's intervention to overcome his challenges. A new legacy. By God's grace, Jabez's life became a testimony of blessing and faithfulness, redeeming the sorrow associated with his name. The story of Jabez is a testament to the power of faith, prayer, and God's transforming grace. It encourages believers to trust God as their provider, pray boldly, seek his favor, and embrace the redemption he offers. Jabez's legacy reminds us that no matter our beginnings, God has the power to bring about a future filled with purpose, blessings, and joy. Jabez's name, meaning sorrow or pain, symbolized a difficult start in life. However, he did not allow this to define his destiny. Faith beyond circumstances. Jabez's life teaches us that we are not bound by the hardships of our past or the limitations imposed by others. A transformative God. Through prayer and reliance on God, Jabez turned a painful beginning into a testimony of divine blessing. This lesson inspires believers to trust God's power to overcome personal challenges, knowing that he can bring victory even in the face of adversity. Jabez's prayer stands as a model of how to approach God with faith, humility, and boldness. Confidence in God's goodness. Jabez's prayer reflects his deep trust in God's ability to provide and protect. A comprehensive appeal. His prayer includes requests for blessings, guidance, protection, and deliverance, showing that no aspect of life is too small or too great to bring before God. God's willingness to respond. The immediate answer to Jabez's prayer demonstrates that heartfelt, faith-filled prayers can move the heart of God. This lesson encourages believers to pray with boldness, trusting in God's love and power to transform their circumstances. The Bible describes Jabez as more honorable than his brothers, highlighting the importance of character and faithfulness in receiving God's blessings. A life of integrity. Jabez's honorable life suggests that his character and faith played a role in his spiritual success. Faith that pleases God. His example shows that God values righteousness and is pleased to bless those who live with integrity and humility. This lesson reminds believers that a life of honor and faithfulness paves the way for experiencing God's favor and blessings. The story of Jabez offers timeless spiritual lessons for believers. It teaches us to rise above limitations, embrace the power of prayer, and live honorably before God. Jabez's journey from sorrow to blessing is a testimony of how faith in God can transform lives, inspiring us to trust in His ability to rewrite our stories and lead us into a future filled with purpose and joy. Jabez's prayer serves as a model for believers to approach God with confidence, asking for blessings and guidance in all areas of life. Ask big. Jabez's prayer teaches us not to limit our requests out of fear or doubt. God's power and generosity are boundless, and He delights in answering prayers rooted in faith. Trust God's timing. Modern believers are reminded to trust that God hears their prayers and will respond in the way and time that aligns with His will. Incorporate all aspects of life. Like Jabez, believers can pray for a spiritual growth, expanded opportunities, protection, and freedom from harm. Approach God boldly in prayer, believing He desires to bless and guide His children. Jabez's request for God's hand to be with him highlights the importance of divine guidance and support in all aspects of life. Rely on God in every situation, whether facing challenges or celebrating victories. Believers are reminded to depend on God for wisdom, strength, and protection. Invite God into daily life. Actively seeking God's presence ensures that decisions and actions align with His purpose. Acknowledge His sovereignty. Recognizing that every success comes from God fosters humility and gratitude. Make seeking God's guidance and presence a daily priority through prayer, scripture, and worship. Jabez's plea to be kept from evil and to live a life that does not cause harm underscores the importance of Christ-like character. Live with integrity. Strive to reflect the love and compassion of Christ in interactions with others. Be a blessing to others. Seek to encourage and uplift, avoiding actions or words that cause hurt or division. Resist temptation. Ask God for strength to overcome sin and make choices that align with His will. Cultivate a heart of kindness and humility, striving to live as a reflection of Christ's love and avoiding harm to others. The story of Jabez inspires modern believers to embrace bold faith, seek God's presence continually, and strive to live lives that bless others. His prayer reminds us that God is attentive and willing to respond to those who approach Him with sincerity, humility, and trust. By applying these principles, Christians can experience God's transformative blessings and reflect His glory in their daily lives. Is a powerful testimony of God's responsiveness to sincere, faith-filled prayers. His life demonstrates that no matter the challenges or limitations one faces, faith in God can lead to a victorious transformation. Jabez's journey from a name associated with pain to a legacy marked by honor and blessing highlights God's ability to rewrite our stories for His glory. Jabez's example inspires believers to pray boldly, approach God with faith, seeking His blessings and guidance with confidence and humility. Trust God's purpose, believing God's power to bring purpose and joy even from the most challenging beginnings. Live with integrity. Emulate Jabez's honorable character, striving to live lives that reflect God's love and bring blessings to others. Jabez's story reminds us that God is attentive to His children's prayers and delights in transforming lives. It encourages believers to trust in His goodness, pray with boldness, and live in a way that honors Him through faith, humility, and reliance on God. We too can experience lives filled with His favor and divine purpose. May your spiritual journey be filled with God's grace and peace. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to inspire others on their walk with the Lord.